It almost feels like those Dune movies are meant to make up for lots of those recent catastrophic sci-fi disasters, labeled as such either for being the sad bombing of a sincere and passionate original take on the genre, as flawed as it might be, or a property almost being done justice, also bombing in the process, or for being an irredeemable mess. There had to be this one savior film or franchise for our faith in high-budget science fiction cinema to hang on to. I've been starving to witness another space set behemoth that at least tries to be half as narratively compelling as it is nice to look at, but several space operatic slash dystopian flops in the future, I'm still fiending for some kind of cosmic alignment to happen because this hurts to watch. What will it take for studios to understand what made those work in the first place? You need a good orchestra led by a conductor powerful enough to not only entice everyday viewers into leaving their genre comfort zone and pay to go to space, but also for them to want more. That's no easy task, but somehow, the universe decided to do some crazy balancing by giving Blade Runner and a property not only referred as unadaptable, but also cursed to a director who spent the bulk of his career harboring this ever-growing vision for science fiction behind this veil of impeccable thriller dramas. Not to mention that every film he's made comes off as a warm-up for the next, and really just this beautiful marathon to get to make a Dune. From the start, that man was on a mission. I'd say it's been 2 decades since last time we've had a director who was not only given a property of this scale, to which he was emotionally attached for him to adapt, but one who actually had the chops to make it work, and it takes more than just being a diehard fan. The perfect merging of skill, talent, and passion we saw through Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings is a rarely repeated occurrence, now happening again for sci-fi with the man at the helm who kept on sharpening his already powerful technique through stories which called for restraint and subtlety. The result are sci-fi films carried by this contemplative, intimate, and refined approach, not typically seen in the genre on such a scale. You also can't just omit the ridiculous lineup Denis been part of, guaranteeing greatness in every department. Hans Zimmer's name is already floating in the mainstream, and people are beginning to recognize Greg Fraser's brush, but I think it's Joe Walker's name that could use some parading for his editorial magic. He's got this knack for creating those goosebump-inducing moments collaborating with Hans or Denis through this aim of matching a shot to its perfect corresponding musical cue. I think Joe is also mostly responsible for Villeneuve's vibe remaining intact through the ever-increasing budget given to him ever since Sicario. He's also edited all of Steve McQueen's films, and that's pretty much all I need to say. Villeneuve and McQueen have this tendency to let a shot linger with the perfect score responding to it, or sometimes without a score. Less is more and they get it. This is what we're dealing with. Finally, we've got a filmmaker being a little more thoughtful in displaying the sci-fi candy instead of this over-reliance on expensive spectacle with no thought put into the presentation, nullifying its potential impact. Enough of watching $100 million being vomited on screen without some kind of directional filter to give it the slightest of weight or meaning. It's not about what you show, but rather how you show it. Execution is key. It's gonna be the Ruby Goldberg machine over the dangling keys anytime. The latter might scream for your attention, while the former calls for a deeper level of intricacy to actually make you feel something. I've always wondered why spend so much time, effort, and capital to set up a shot if you're only gonna make it last half a second on average. I'm not taking the TikTok demographics attention span for an answer. As probably risky as it is, Denis' movies are made in a way that actually respects the audience, rewarding them with next-level artistry, whether it's Jacqueline West's costumes or Patrice Vermette's production design, which both somehow found a way to double down on what they've created for Part 1. Jessica's dresses and robes look like they cost a house, and the Harkonnen settings look even more Geiger-esque. Part 1 was just practice. Funny enough, I wasn't all that into what Villeneuve was going for with this at first. Grounded and realistic take on Dune, as bold as it sounds, is a concept I'd reject without a thought. That kid part of me can't help but prefer to see its space adventures be more fun and weird instead of grounded and realistic. But if you're gonna do it, commit and do it right. It was a good move because look at this. I still remember getting the very first glimpse of Part 1. A friend of mine with whom I shared the hype just sent me this image without a word, and I just thought it was another Tim Cham-led Napoleon-esque period piece until I noticed the floating monoliths in the back, and I was like, oh, this is for real. This is serious. Also, shout out to George Hull, a beast of a concept artist known for his work with both Villeneuve and the Wachowski sisters throughout. I think he's the best at what he does, and seeing those Zero ships do the butterfly drop deployment was where that Jupiter sending teaser really got me. Get you a man that can do both sides of the vehicular tonal spectrum. So anyways, they made Dune make sense, and now with part 2, there seems to be this additional amount of confidence carried in every aspect, allowing a little more of that precious fun to be had with all the assets. Part 1 did its stretches and warm-ups, showing a few very neat tricks before doing the crazy flips in part 2. Seriously impressive, and an example that should be followed by other stories of similar scale intending on being told. It's only by reading and appreciating the book that one can only encapsulate and emphasize the sublime presence of the maker. They're not just meant to feel big, they're meant to feel godlike, and you need to make some very specific filmmaking choices to get that across. They did it, and they're doing it again. I sort of scoffed at this hype-fueled tweet I found about that Battle of Arrakeen potentially matching the Battle of the Pelennor Fields in Lord of the Rings because I thought it'd be too much to ask for. And here I am standing corrected. Being wrong is fun, but having your expectations surpassed is also fun. This looks biblical. Part 1 now seems small, like how do you even do that? Maybe things aren't as bad as I thought they were because I find it a little scary how lucky we are to see this being done that well, and me accepting the possibility of this somehow being Villeneuve's worst film to counter some merciless jinx is just my defense mechanism at work, but I think there are too many factors at play here to make this a remote possibility. We're in good hands, but there will never be enough emphasis on the word collaboration because that's the craziest thing to behold. This is one loaded orchestra we've got carrying this immense sci-fi platter for us to just pick out. The directing, impeccable. The production design, better than last time. Performances, as sincere and impactful as the next. Hotel, Trivago. Best of all, it's apparently all in service of a compelling narrative and not just a sci-fi geek's self-indulgent plotless cosmic dream. As fun as it kinda sounds, most of those just end up flopping hard. Unless you're James Cameron. There are some things I didn't think would be done justice due to being a little daring, like the extent of Fade's depravity, but I forgot that Denis has this way of showing violence in this oddly creative way, bringing viewers to feel how they should feel when confronted by it. Efficiently discomforting. This shot is the proof that you don't always need an R rating to convey the brutality. Good staging and implication will make up for the restraint. I swear I can't count the amount of dreams I've had of a sci-fi film being made this way, and I can't be alone saying this. Normally, a director would have to sacrifice some of his idiosyncrasy for a more palatable high-budget experience, but part 1 proved that it's not happening here. I've got my beefs with Warner Bros, but at least it's not often guilty of having its directors pay for bigger projects with their whole stylistic identity. Shots linger, it focuses on the little things, intimate and contemplative, just like the rest of Villeneuve's output, and all because he respects his audience. And again, to see elements shown in part 1 shown again but leveled up makes me feel this weird second-handed pride for Denis and crew. Cringe, I know, but it's true. I can't help but feel this way seeing a man becoming the filmmaker making the kinds of films I'd wish to make, and exquisitely so. He's also from my hometown. Represent. Even if I do have some minor yet very specific gripes about certain things that I see, I don't want to get into that. For now, I'd rather celebrate and keep that energy till March. As much as I encourage being critical of what we like, I think given our current context and how things are going for grand-scale sci-fi cinema, I think we should take this time more to focus on what we want to see more of and less on what's not there. It's less to deny the valid takes and more to bring emphasis on how right of a path this rides and that we want more of it, but for that, the longing needs to be triggered beyond fans of both the genre and the property. Fortunately, as hammered down, we're lucky to see this being made by a director who knows what makes a movie excel before anything else. The star power-driven cast decisions over accuracy and certain concepts being sidelined is the payment for Denis to make a movie that'll be sustained and appreciated by both the masses and fans of the material, such as the man himself. He's doing it for us. Listen to his take on the task of adapting. He hears you, Dune Nation. He's doing his best and I feel lucky to see it. If this video has any purpose, it's to really make sure that this isn't taken for granted because it's so rare to have the best in the industry gathered to make such a thing happen. You can call this lightning in a bottle or a miracle, as long as it's given the support it deserves. Time to undo the curse. This is the best case scenario, it feels like, and it doesn't feel like a narrow-minded thing to express. Too good to be true.